This had better be important.
Yes, sir. The American agent has infiltrated the X-Lab facility.
Welcome back. Happy Monday to you. I'm Ronnie. Welcome back to the Monday edition of the Combat Footage Show. Hit the like button. Drop a comment in the chat. Sorry I'm late. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Here we go. Where you guys at? Welcome in from the Netherlands. How are you? From Pennsylvania, what's up? Minneapolis, Fort Smith, what's going on? Your late birthday boy? Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. Don't worry, they're not sliding. They're not getting away with what they did. Cape Cod, how are you? Soki, your closet. Well, come on out. Florida, how are you? Welcome back, guys. Again, welcome back to a Monday edition. We actually haven't had a Monday edition in I want to say maybe 2 weeks. So just to kind of remind you what the Monday edition is, you know, I'm not a news show, I'm not a news anchor. Don't want to be, don't care to be, don't care. The Monday edition is really just to try and catch you up while you're with family or while you are, you know, doing whatever it is that you do to try and lead a normal life from all the footage that, I shouldn't say all the footage, as much relevant footage as possible from over the weekend, right? So that's one of the reasons that we stream Mondays and Fridays. Friday is to catch you up throughout the week. Monday is so that you can go enjoy, you know, life with your family, live your lives, make babies, create your own internal fire teams, and thrive, moisturized. But it's good to see you, and welcome back. We're going to talk about 2 different wars tonight. We're going to cover both Ukraine, and we're going to cover Israel. We'll be starting with footage in Israel. We'll actually be starting with a map to update you guys on the progress of Israel's ground assault, or the more decisive portion of the ground assault, like we talked about on Friday. We've got quite a bit of footage from it. We're going to play a little bit of Funker Fact or Fiction here in a little bit, which is why I'm late. You know, I don't claim a whole lot of expertise. There are a couple of things that I do at least have some certification and expertise on, and we're going to talk about that. But we're also going to see a little bit of footage from Krasnohorivka, a little bit of an update on Avdiivka, and a little bit of footage out of Ukraine. Like I've mentioned before, ideally, in a perfect world, we'll be covering a little bit from as many different wars and conflict areas as possible during the show. Now, tonight's show might move a little quickly, simply just because of time and having the appropriate time to cover the stuff that I want to, but we might end up spending quite a little bit on it. But I want to get started by showing you guys a map of the current progress of Israel's decisive portion of the ground assault. Here is the best map that I could find. This comes, I want to say, from either Tendar. It is Tendar, at Tendar on Twitter. Do recommend to follow there. This comes from Tendar on Twitter, and it's one of the better, easy-to-read maps that I've been able to find. And we're going to talk about a couple key areas here. I'm going to bring myself up and go. No, not that button. Where is it? Here we go. Right there. That's the one. And we're going to talk about a couple things here. Just like we talked about on Friday. There are 2 primary avenues that the IDF is approaching the ground invasion. One is from the north. We were actually led to believe that that was in the northeast, Beit Hanun. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I'm doing my best. But it looks like the primary location that Israel is pressing into Gaza is the northwest. There could very likely be, you know, other places, but as it stands right now, this is I've seen this reported across many different sources. So in that northwest, Siafa, we'll see some footage from up there, some tanks, you know, bulldozers, front-end loaders, whatever they are, construction equipment being used, engineering equipment to set conditions. We're also going to see some footage of Israel as they move in further to the southeast. Now, down in the southeast there, we're going to see I wouldn't call it somewhat controversial, but a video that's going to show a Merkava tank engaging a white car. We'll see that a little bit later on in the stream. But that is, what we suspected to happen. What was rumored to be taking place is an incursion from the north and also from the south. Now, to orient you to this map a little bit, to understand the significance, the red line that you have in the bottom left, right next to my stupid face there, that is Wazi Gaza. That is Wazi Gaza, That is a river. That is the demarcation point that Israel asked all of the non-combatants, i.e. Palestinians, to evacuate south of. They've dropped leaflets, which we'll see footage of tonight. They've actually taken out ads on social media to try and get people to move to the south. A large campaign to get as many Palestinians that don't want to fight to move beyond that demarcation point. So I wanted to update you guys. Oh, the green line there. That's actually Saladin Road. It's one of the two roads that Israel asked the Palestinians, or essentially set aside from a targeting perspective for Palestinians to use to get to Wadi Gaza. But we're actually going to see some footage of on that road, which is its own talking point. But let's get into the footage that I have for the night. We're going to be starting up in the north. And I need to... I'm going to pull up Google Earth here. Google.com/Earth. Should have had that pulled up, but I ran behind today. We're going to be starting in the north. And Israel's fight against the Lebanese Hezbollah. First, we'll watch some footage of some of these strikes, and then I will orient you to them on the map. These are airstrikes against Lebanese Hezbollah from the IDF. The strikes you're actually seeing are taking place in multiple spots. Both of these locations have geolocation details in the stream description. Free parking for Ronnie birthday. No, there's not free parking. I'm going to make that nickel on the parking. Chad, thank you for the $1.20. What's up, Ronnie from New Zealand? Love your work. Love you. Thank you very much for being here. Dzug, thanks very much for becoming a member. I think we've watched this once or twice through, but I've got more IDF strike footage hitting Hezbollah in the north. This is all released over the weekend. Or since we were last live. There's going to be one exception to that. We're going to see some Shia Tet footage. That was actually mentioned on Friday by the chat, by you guys, and I just hadn't yet seen it. So that's some pretty wild footage, though. We'll see it when we get to it. More strikes against Hezbollah. Lebanese Hezbollah. No sound to any of these. Funker, when you come in hunting in Montana, that sounds like a dream. Watching from Iowa. Love the live stream. So thanks for being here, AJ. Just reading through the chat here. Got Bullish on Parade from Canada. Welcome in. Oh, it's only 8 seconds. We've been sitting. I'm just reading through the chat, hanging out with you guys. Now, I've got some more footage of strikes against Hezbollah. First, I want to pull up some geo coordinates. This will be the location, one of the two locations of that first set of strikes that we watched. This took place here, inside of Lebanon. Recognize and understand that that's not overly helpful. Let's turn on some better layers. Nope, that doesn't help. I want everything. Give me all of it. That didn't help either, but that's inside of Lebanon. The second strike video, the 8-second long one that we watched over and over again because I wasn't paying attention, is here. The next bit of footage I have is still continued strikes against Lebanese Hezbollah, just without a geolocation. I did see some threads talking about geolocation, but I couldn't actually find lat-long coordinates for it. Here you are. Boom. Knock, knock. Please do tap on the like button if you haven't done so yet. Give it a, The appropriate slap is a little bit of an uppercut, so you lift it. Can't game right. Hi. Got one more of those coming up for you here. Just no geolocation on these. Still released by the IDF, though, in their fight against Hezbollah. These strikes took place on the 29th. If you didn't happen to notice, they do provide a little bit of detail. And I also appreciate the lack of music over them. Coming up with one more against Hezbollah. This one I don't this one is not in thermal. So, it's pretty wild stuff here. These strikes took place on the 27th, but the footage itself, I didn't catch until, I want to say, early Saturday. Just kind of repeatedly hitting that compound. If I recall the story behind, those early strikes correctly, they took fire from that compound and then ultimately used the Yeetus Deletus button to take it away. All right. Now let's bring it back up. That's what I have for you guys from the north. From the West Bank, I didn't record any. There's plenty of footage. So it's not for a lack of footage. It's for a lack of footage that provides any context or value in understanding the surrounding situation. So there's like 1 and 2 second clips of, an IDF vehicle driving by. We showed some of that kind of stuff on Friday. But Monday is really just to try and catch you up from over the weekend so that you have a good start point for the rest of the week. So we're going to move to southern Israel, more towards Gaza now. Now, that ground assault that I talked about on Friday, that I read the comments after the chat. So if you're in the VOD and you're watching right now, I read your comments. So somebody in the comments said, I didn't see any ground assault video. If you didn't either, report this video as spam. Well, we showed you 2 videos of ground assaults that took place over the previous 48 hours. Now we're going to see quite a bit of footage from ground assaults. So if you'd still like to, report the video as spam, you're welcome to. You just aren't really going to have a cause to do that. But here is some of the first footage of Israel's ground assault, the decisive portion of that ground assault, because the ground assault has technically been taking place over the course of like a week and a half at this point. But nonetheless, here's the footage. Now, the gravity and importance of this was really just to show the concentration of vehicles, right? Just how much armor was amassing just outside of Gaza before ultimately these next couple videos started taking place, which are geolocated to be in that northwestern corner. Here you are. Some of those Israeli model killdozers. coming back up. Got more, though. Lost my place in my script. There it is. More footage of the ground operations. Here you are. Now, something that I talked about on Friday is an overwhelming amount of the footage that we're going to get of these operations is going to come in this fashion. We will end up seeing onesie and twosie bits of video from Gazans, Palestinians, but largely due to the general blackout that's still taking place in Gaza. Unfortunately, a lot of the footage that we'll see, rather than on-ground perspectives via cell phone, will be official releases. Now, we will have some footage here in a little bit that we're going to take a look at. That is most certainly not an official release. Here comes some more footage for you of ground operations inside of Gaza. And the majority of these are all from that northwestern corner of Gaza. This one specifically, just to quote the IDF here, it says, as we continue to expand our ground operations in northern Gaza, Israeli Air Force aircraft guided by IDF troops struck Hamas structures, anti-tank missile launch posts and observation posts were struck, and, quote, multiple terrorists were eliminated. That's their official statement on this video. See dismounts humping in there with, huge packs. I saw a fleeting report that Israel is estimating somewhere around 6 months to a year for this entire operation to take place. Jason, thank you for the 10. Get a haircut, hippie. I do need a haircut. And more coming up for you now. Stop it. Stop it with the whole he should be back from that window thing. This isn't fucking Call of Duty, all right? It's not. Just stop it. Let's go back to the footage. And if you'll note, the thumbnail tonight is an official Israeli release photo of that guy. Why are they bulldozing? Couple reasons, right? We watched actually some of that bulldozer type footage, engineering vehicles footage on Friday. We saw them essentially bulldozing everything from just the streets, for whatever reason, to hitting water lines. We also have seen them using bulldozers against the barricades and barriers that Hamas has set up throughout the city. Doing that, clearing those, is going to provide some level of freedom of maneuver, right? We've seen them use bulldozers to clear out barricaded shooter positions. We saw that used in Sderot, at the Sderot police station, which we'll actually see footage of the Sderot police station today, towards the end of the Israel section of tonight's stream. So there are myriad reasons why you'd have a bulldozer, right? Mostly to move shit out of the way that you don't want to be there. That's what I'd guess. Got some geolocated footage here, which we're going to pull up on the map. Of the note that I have says Israeli tanks hitting Hamas positions. I got to go back to Google Earth, which for some reason I closed, to get that location pulled up for you. Here we go. It's inside of Gaza in that northwestern corner we talked about earlier. So here, this being the general outskirts of Gaza City. You're in the burbs up here. That is essentially the extent based on mapping. They could be much further into the city, but at this point. But again, information is going to flow at the rough speed of pond water for this. One more time, we'll pull up the location of this. But I closed it out a moment ago. So that's the location of the video we're about to watch. Here you are. Andy, thank you for the 20, sir. Your opinion on our bases in Iraq and Syria being attacked? Yeah, don't touch my stuff, I mean, that's the best answer. If you touch my stuff, I'm going to touch you back. You'll have the relative smooth brain response of, all of our troops being in Syria is a detriment to our national security. There's like 850 total troops in Syria. You would be surprised how much of our military is forward deploys. Aren't there like 50 strategic bombers at Incirclic? What's the force layout of those in Germany? All right, it's generally speaking, it's hegemony. Our positions in Syria are there for more than just being in Syria, right? So we're countering Russia's ability to, really maintain control over Syria, as they ally against Assad. We're actively conducting operations against ISIS. ISIS still exists. And we saw what happened the last time we let that, we dropped the ball and let that kind of just flourish. Things went pretty crazy for a while, so maybe keeping a foot on that neck might be a good idea. That's just my thought. Now, the IDF is also continuing to conduct airstrikes in Gaza. We're going to see a little bit of aftermath footage here from some IDF airstrikes, and I do have geolocation for this. It's in the stream description if you'd like to look. Andy, thank you for the 1282. All right. Now, a little bit more of, I call this kind of footage kind of contextual, right? And I think this is some interesting footage to see. We're going to take a drive through, actually, let's look at the exact location here on the map, just so you can see. We're going to take a drive through Gaza really quick. Let's take a look on the map. So we're going to start here. Okay. And we're going to move to here. So we'll be driving from essentially this intersection to the south. I think that's south. Nah, well, southwest. To the southwest, and then we'll see, you know, a little bit of other footage. Coming up now. Now, for the the question about why do they have bulldozers? Well, imagine you are hoping for some level of freedom of maneuver when you enter this, and it's not cleared out. You're gonna need to clear that shit out. But more of that coming up for you now. And then one more. Then we're going to be taking a look at that Shayatet 13 footage. Okay. I'm going to take a pause here, check in on the support, and thank you guys for Gunslinger. Thank you for the 762. Skeet Shoot and Bang. Thanks very much for the 10. Please read. I'll take 2 number 9s, a number 9 large, a number 6 with extra dip, number 7, 2 number 45s, 1 with cheese, and a large soda. We don't have liter of cola. Happy Halloween. Thanks very much for the 10. Appreciate that. Matt J, thank you for the $2. Bianco support gotta be fire. Bianco Resort. Thanks very much for the $2. Andy, thank you again for the 1282. Wyatt, thank you for the 20. And Jason, thank you again for the 10. Get a haircut. I know I need a haircut. I'll actually have a haircut before Friday's show. So, thank you guys. Thanks for being here. We appreciate that very much. Let's check in southern Gaza. Now, the majority of activity that we've looked at has been in the north. You know, in Gaza itself, there were, still airstrikes throughout. We talked about the Shifa hospital on Friday, right? But we're gonna take a trip to the south, all the way down here, where according to the IDF, a Hamas C2 hub or some form of a launch point for boat stuff, sea raids of some kind. Again, Hamas initially invaded Israel, land, sea, and air. Well, this place probably isn't there anymore because Shayatet 13, following a series of big explosions and a lot of small arms, raided it. You're listening to the sound of an IWI Negev 762 by 51. Thing's awesome. This is an interesting perspective. One that I kind of didn't expect. IDF doesn't use 7.62 negevs. Oh, I stand corrected. I'm happy to be corrected on anything I say that's stupid. Yeah. I mean, I think that's important too, right? My opinions on things, or the things that I say, are always open to negotiation, right? That's the open-mindedness that I think is necessary, especially when it comes to something like war that can be so overly polarizing, but even more so with something factual like that. So if the IDF doesn't use the 7.62 51 Negev and only uses the 5.56, I learned something today. Let's move on though. Now, okay, here is where things start getting weird. We're going to see some footage of this spot right here on Salah ad-Din Road. Right there. Okay. So, there's going to be a tank. It's going to be sitting here. And there's going to be two vehicles. Two vehicles are going to be important here. One of them has a guy with, a couple guys with a bunch of cameras. And the other one we can't see inside. The other one is the one we're going to focus on. It drives towards the tank, goes to turn around in an Austin Powers kind of turn, and turns around to leave. Well, the tank shoots that car. That's the best way for me to put that. That's the footage that we're about to watch right now. This footage broke earlier today. Coming up for you now. A vehicle up there.
صور الله يستر واحد الزلمه الله يستر هيا في دبابه مشت
And it's gone.
صور الله يستر واحد الزلمه.
So let's talk about this for a second.
هيا في دبابه مشت
I'm going to bring it back to about here. About right there. Perfect. Let's talk about this for a second. And I have a couple thoughts. First thought is there is a likelihood that that vehicle is a civilian vehicle. There is also an equal likelihood that it's not a civilian vehicle, largely because Hamas doesn't have MRAPs. They don't have any form of armored vehicle. Honestly, we've seen them driving Gators around. Regardless, those two likelihoods are just about equal at this point. Here's where you can start to add in probabilities. The IDF has done an inordinate, and we're going to look at an example of this here in a second, amount of attempting to get anybody that does not want to fight to flee the areas that they were going to come into Gaza as much as possible. Again, they've done leaflet drops. We'll see one here in a second. They've done, video releases. It wouldn't be far-fetched to believe that they've done loudspeaker type things as well. If they're doing leaflet drops using that PSYOP capability, they'll bring in loudspeakers. So both of those likelihoods are still somewhat equal. Here's the problem. Even if it is a civilian vehicle, from an ROE perspective, even a poorly built VBID at that distance from that tank is casualty producing. Now, I paused at that very specific spot because somebody brought up kind of an interesting point. They said, well, you can almost see Hamas firing from that vehicle. There's a glare in the rear driver window. In my opinion, that glare is merely just the vehicle turning into the sun, right? But this is what I've spoken about before, that this operation, that going into Gaza was going to be difficult at times. And if the Palestinians that are there don't want to be there, don't want to be targeted while they're in there, they need to leave, ultimately. Listen, I understand that that's their home and they don't want to be there. Israel's coming in. So from a preservation of life perspective, unless you want to be a part of that fight, recommend that you move to the southwest beyond Wadi Gaza. That's what it is. Right? Again, that's not me saying that this is, a clear-cut situation. Again, there's a likelihood from both directions. 50-50 in my mind. On the one hand, there's a high likelihood that that's a civilian vehicle, and some level of the IDF version of a 15-6 is going to need to be executed for that. There's also just an equal of a likelihood that they are rolling in there as some form of a scout team to try and identify current Israeli locations. Let's watch the rest of the footage, and we'll move on. So I don't speak Arabic, but I'm willing to bet that he's telling them to unass the direction that they're headed. We'll watch this one more time. So you can see the tank here, the Merkava, what looks like some form of a road barrier in place, whether that was put there by the IDF, unlikely, or Hamas, I'm not certain. It's also notable, this is more qualitative and we're really diving into opinion here. It's also notable that large frame lenses like that poking out of the side of a vehicle in an active combat zone. I think you know where I'm going with that. But speaking of leaflet drops, asking people to leave, here is the latest. Yeah, so those are going to be leaflets with instructions on what to do next, where to evacuate, who to call if you need help, things along those lines. It's probably not money, but pretty standard. We dropped leaflets over Baghdad, before entering Baghdad. I personally dropped leaflets. Dropped one of a picture of prominent ISIS leaders wearing traditional Afghan dresses because we had intel that they were wearing dresses to hide amongst the population. So what I wanted to do is drop leaflets that's, got them pissed off and used their radio. And when they used their radio, we knew where they were. So then we, touched them in the face with warheads. Let's bring it up. The next one's going to take a little time. So we kind of zoomed through, and this will be one of the last videos that we talk about in Israel. This video is a part of a series of releases from Southern First Responders. Southern First Responders has been the primary source for us that is providing the clear and concise imagery of Hamas just indiscriminately targeting civilians. We're actually going to look at the last video, portions of the last video that in their latest release. We'll talk through exactly what that happens, or exactly what happens in those previous videos, but we're working on actually compiling all of them together into one longer video. First, we're playing a little bit of Funker Fact or Fiction here. We're going to watch a version of this that went viral. I've talked about this before. Things that go viral are oftentimes going to be the things in their extremities, right? Something in its normality. So something that's normal, right, is not going to go viral. The guy sitting in his lawn chair isn't necessarily going to go viral. The guy sitting in his lawn chair when a vehicle comes, flying across the screen and knocks him out of it, that's going to go viral. So what we have here is a 17-second version of a 5-minute long clip. There are a couple issues with this. We'll talk about them here in a second. All right, so what you just watched This is the Sderot police station. All of these guys standing around here, these are Hamas. This is a part of the last video that was released by Southern First Responders. We actually have a link that you can get to for their Telegram page if you just follow through in the stream description. The video release that they put out actually provides a whole lot of additional context from what happened to the civilian that was operating this vehicle and what exactly this vehicle up at the top that was hit by that RPG was doing. Okay, so the way this ends up actually shaking out is these guys roll into frame. This civilian vehicle here stops. The guy gets out. They start shooting at him and bust his radiator. That's why you see radiator fluid all over the ground here. He retreats to an alleyway back here to the back left. They round that corner, begin shooting at him and another vehicle and another civilian, but ultimately find their way back here. That's what brings us to this video of what appears to be a gentleman in the middle of the street firing an RPG at an approaching vehicle. Here's the problem. This video is cropped and color corrected. Why would it be cropped, Ronnie? Stand by. I'm going to show you the original release. The original release gives us additional context, and it's about a 5-minute video, so we're going to fast forward through it. So this is the original release. We have a little bit more of the road here, but we also have a higher quality video. You'll also notice that the color is a little bit different. It hasn't been edited whatsoever, and at right around 1:35, we see that vehicle come into frame. So we'll start at 1:20. I'd like you to look on the dash of that vehicle. Here's that vehicle that's already come into frame. What's on the dash of that vehicle that's cropped out of the other video? Again, this is another video that was shared by, by million follower accounts to their entire platform. What's on the dash of that vehicle is a flashing red light. This is a response vehicle of some kind. What I don't know, here's what I don't know. I don't know what kind of response vehicle that is. Doesn't look like an ambulance. Here in the States, red, only red, typically dictates either fire or EMS. Blue and red, or just blue, oftentimes is law enforcement of some kind. I'm not certain about that portion of the context. But there's other problems with this video. Problems that weren't corrected by those large accounts. I want to focus specifically on the RPG shot. There are many people claiming that this video is fake, largely because of the shot. Right there. Many people are claiming this is fake because they assume that our kneeling Hamas guy is the one that took the shot. That's not actually the case. The shot actually comes, and it's actually right here on your screen. Right there. From off screen to the right. Should actually be only a few feet. The shot comes from off screen to the right, and this dust, or mini explosion that you're seeing here, is actually the booster ending. So there are two charges on a PG-7. There is a booster that is designed to propel the grenade out of the tube. And then there is the rocket motor that'll engage at 10 meters, around 10 meters or 33 feet. That's what you're seeing ignite here. So that's the argument that I got into on Twitter is, people were claiming very adamantly that this video was fake. Why? I'm not certain. But what you're seeing is somebody fire an RPG from off screen to the right, After about 10 meters or 33 feet, the rocket motor engages, and then it finds its way home. Here's where things start getting interesting. And I don't, things are already interesting. It's all interesting to me. I don't claim expertise in a whole lot of things, but I actually do happen to be certified to maintain and fix the RPG. Right? This is, one of the few foreign weapon systems that the Army felt fit to certify me to maintain. And if you ever get your hands on an RPG, don't take apart the pistol grip because it's extremely dangerous. I'm not kidding. That will f*** you up. But that's what you're seeing here. Let's watch it one more time. Most people tried to be a little bit ironic about it, a little bit of gaslighting. They're like, oh, it's not fake. How's the rocket still in the RPG then? Like, well, he never shot it. And what's interesting is it might have actually failed, right? I mean, how old is this PG-7? And you can actually see the booster. So the booster on this is this bottom portion. It just screws on there. It's right here. So that part is what sends it out of the tube, and then at about 10 meters or 33 feet, the rocket motor will ignite, and that's what takes it to its target. But they don't leave him there. They eventually come back. Loot this vehicle. This guy makes it away. But note, they are engaging this motorcycle in the back here. I should have given you a discretion advice for that, and I apologize for not doing so. Now, the light at the end of the tunnel on this video was, if you recall, actually, we'll talk about that here in a second. Finish out the video. The light at the end of this video, at the end of the tunnel here, is more than likely all of those Hamas guys are dead. So, if you recall the story behind Sderot Police Station, there were something like, if I recall correctly, 20 Israeli police officers that were inside. All were killed. And the Hamases, or whatever, barricaded themselves then inside of that police station. Well, then the IDF just kind of demolished the building on top of them. So they're probably all dead now. So I'm going to take a pause here because we're at the demarcation point for the stream. We'll be headed into a little bit of footage from Ukraine, and I'm going to check on the support, and thank you guys for it. Drayo, thank you for the 5. Didn't know you guys were doing live streams on this. Best coverage I've seen so far. Keep it up, man. This show has been around since February 24th. Technically prior, but we just hadn't yet gone live with it. It was edited uploads of 2022, right? Well, when Russia invaded Ukraine, we decided, maybe now's the time for us to kick off the plan that we've had for months to do a live show. There's a reason behind us doing it. The channel itself is more or less demonetized. It's got nothing to do with money. It's about providing context around the footage, because even though footage is becoming even more prevalent than it ever has been, it's still shared with disingenuously. Right? You'll see, like the example we just looked at, you'll see it cropped, you'll see it edited, color corrected. Our function and focus, regardless of what it is that we're looking at, is to show you the raw footage. It's not to edit it. In the worst case, what we do is we put like a discretion advised warning for the nastiest stuff. But that's the purpose of the show, is to provide the context that we have. Is it always going to be perfect context? No. No, it's not, because we are humans as well, and in a lot of instances, we're getting stuff second, third, and fourth hand. But it will be genuine context that we believe, certainly. ST, thank you very much for the $3. Doug, thank you for the $3.70. Thanks for everything you do from Ontario, Canada. Welcome in. Matt, thank you for the $6.09. Been watching for a while, including the content on Ukraine. I want to thank yourself and the team behind the scenes that make this show possible. I am just one small part of a team. Myself, Josh, Will, Cam, Cole, Funker, the dev team. We are a small team. Even our dev team's like 2 dudes, and we're not done. Right? We launched the app. We're about to make another major change to the app. Specifically, that has to do with video players. We're kind of tired of relying on other people for stuff. And that's really the last third-party reliance that we have. Once we get that fixed, then we will be wholly separated from any reliance on any third party to continue archiving all this stuff. We're aware of the challenges that we're having with the player right now, and that was the real catalyst for us to make this change. But more to follow on that. Vito, thank you for the 556. Let's jump to the Ukraine map. So we're going to be covering a little bit of footage from Ukraine, not a whole lot, right? More or less from, a battle lines, from a forward line of troops perspective. The war in Ukraine has become, very much so attritional from a certain perspective. So let's head over to Deep State. And we'll start to talk about a little bit of the footage that's coming out of Ukraine. Here we are. Now, we're actually going to be starting down in Sevastopol tonight, where a very large series of strikes landed. Let's say it's on this edge out here. Let's take a look at that footage. This was reported to include ATACMS, the Army Tactical Missile System, along with the Storm Shadow. And Russia said that they shot all of them down. I guess except for this one. Now, just like we talked about with some of the other strikes that either ATACMS or Storm Shadow is used, it's very extremely likely that there's a high percentage of these that get shot down. But if I block, 10 punches from you, but the one that you land is a left hook and it hits me right on the temple, I would say that combination was somewhat effective. But I've got more footage of this coming up for you now. Series of videos here. This would look like it is air defense engaging. Now, here's the thing. Regardless of anything else, this boat, because that's in the water, Doesn't look like it's laying a smoke screen. I don't know what that is, but that doesn't look like a smoke screen. I guess you could probably make an argument that it's kind of a smoke screen. Just kind of an unintentional one. One more video of this strike. Actually, I don't want to watch that one because then I'd have to listen to that snort or whatever that was again. But I want to move to Donetsk in the east. Donetsk. Sorry. We're going to head towards Krasnohorivka, which is just to the south of Avdiivka. Here. Now, okay, go away, please. Go away, please. Now, Russia mounted a major offensive effort near Avdiivka. You can see that indicated by these arrows, right? We've got a ton of footage of a massive amount of Russian losses that took place in and around these mines. And actually, this might be from the northern Krasnohorivka. I'll need to follow up with that and try and put a note in the description. But we have more footage of additional losses from Russia as a part of that. I saw a lot of comments about, the ground, this, when is this footage? It's very recent footage. What you're seeing on the ground is likely frost. But this is Ukrainian artillery impacting around Russians as they approach their objective area, and then those Russians then unassing that area. David, thank you for the 741. Funker forever. Thank you for that very much. Steel Toad, thank you for the $5. Hope you don't have to start covering mainland America. Did I copy the footage down here? No, I didn't. We have. Yeah. There's a huge, riot in Chicago. I actually tweeted that one out on my personal account. I run into that problem all the time. I tweet a lot. It's one of the secondary and tertiary sources that I use for footage. But sometimes I get the Funker account and my personal account mixed up and accidentally send something on the personal account that I meant for the Funker account, and then vice versa. I get into arguments with people on the Funker account that I totally should not be getting into arguments with people about outside of using the personal account. Anyway. But we have. Yeah, certainly. And that's interesting. That guy, thank you for the $5. We're part of a bigger team, Veterans Worldwide. Thanks for the 5. And Drello, thank you very much. Again, for the 5. I got more footage from Avdiivka, though. Coming up for you now. These are Russian vehicles parked inside of an impact area. See D-Pick'em being used there. Those are those. Oh, geez, that's not quiet. This is one of the problems that we're having with the player. If this fucking shit could just go away. We also have a problem with the scrubber. The scrubber doesn't work very well. But we're working on it. We know. Those small impacts that you saw in that circular pattern, that was D-Pick'em or cluster munitions, or the dual purpose improved conventional munition. More from Ukraine, though, just flipping the coin over a little bit. We've seen plenty of footage of this kind. The difficulty of moving in and around vehicles in mechanized warfare is not to be understated. These are going to be Ukrainians riding on the top of a armored vehicle. If they go to dismount, and when they dismount towards the back of the vehicle. The vehicle looks like it moves to try and get out of the way of some form of, I don't know, a strike. And, well, I'm not sure what the blinky screen and all that is here. But the reason I wanted to show this one is it's extremely difficult to see outside of the, that Soviet era equipment. It's really one of the biggest takeaways that I have from being inside of T-Series tanks is you can't see anything out of it. Now, the only Soviet era APC I've been inside of is a BDRM, bedroom BRDM. I always mix up the BDRM and BRDM. It was terrible. Impossible to see out of it. If somebody is behind you, there's no way to know it. And we've seen footage like this over and over again from Soviet-era systems that we've seen them drive direct over top of extremely clear layer, mines laid across the roads, both Ukrainians and Russians. BRDM? Yeah, okay. For some reason, somewhere along the line, I got it in my brain that it was BDRM, and my brain cannot separate from that. This is actually one of the last. It's not the last video. I always have one more video for you. This is one of the last videos that I had that was released over the weekend, and it's Ukrainians. You see, the reason they get away from that unharmed, in the U.S. military, we wear PT belts, but what Ukrainians do is they put the PT belt material all over their stuff, and that way you get the extra coverage from it. What actually, in a very serious note, what stands out to me here is the conditioning to that. Right. A large explosion of that caliber next to most of us is going to be brown pants inducing. These guys kind of shrug it off from a certain perspective. All right, let's bring it up. Need to check in on the support because a bunch of it came through while we were talking about those last few videos. That guy, thank you for the $5. Did that thing just back up over a guy that fell off? Yes. Yes, it did. Yeah, that's not the first of those videos we've seen. We've seen, Russians fall off and getting run over. It's one of those realities of war, and one of those reasons that you have stupid rules around vehicles, in training, is to avoid things like that. In that situation when everything but accomplishing whatever it is your mission is blurred out in the periphery. You're not really paying attention to whether or not there's a guy behind you and you need to move your vehicle backwards. You just know you need to move your vehicle backwards. So it's one of those realities that really doesn't get talked about a lot. It gets complained about with, stupid rules like PT belts, visibility being the primary reason for those. But yeah, that's what you saw. And David, thank you for the 741. Guys, we're actually coming to the end of the stream tonight. It was a relatively short one. We started late and we're ending a little bit earlier. I do have one more video for you. It's an interesting one, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Thanks for being here. The stream will always be imperfect because ultimately we are just people that are looking at the same imperfect lens into a real situation somewhere around the globe. Hopefully, whatever levels of expertise we as a team have, at least at the individual levels, we're able to apply against that and relay that as a part of the context we provide. But even then, it's still going to be imperfect. All I can say is that we appreciate you guys being here. Please do check in on the app, on the website. We're continuously improving that, and we're working through the next big change, which, again, is player-based. So be flexible with us. Thank you very much. And I would like to say, for our last video, that nobody's more of a dickhead to the military than other people in the military. You're going to see Apache pilots using rotor wash against a buddy, or excuse me, Black Hawk pilots using their rotor wash while their buddy on the ground tries to relieve himself. Good night. We'll see you on the post footage, the post show, combat footage post show, which will automatically redirect you over there, and stay informed. It gets me every time. He's trying to take a piss. Let me explain this more plainly. He's trying to take a piss, and they flew the Black Hawk over top of him so that the rotor wash would mess with him. Gave him the one finger that counts. Good night, and we'll see you on Friday.